Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Attorney General Kris Mayes. The first sentence of Section 1 of the 14th Amendment is clear. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Period. Yesterday, in an affront to the Constitution he had sworn an oath to protect, President Trump issued a blatantly unconstitutional executive order ending birthright citizenship and shredding our nation's most sacred document. If allowed to stand, this unconstitutional order would annually deprive thousands of newborns the citizenship and privileges they are entitled to. And those children in Arizona when they grow up, they will lose the ability to fully and fairly participate in American society as citizens, despite the Constitution's guarantee of their citizenship. Countless American patriots have fought and died to protect our Constitution and the rights it guarantees for all citizens and all individuals born in this nation. As I said after the election, I will not allow Donald Trump to shred the United States Constitution. This executive order has nothing to do with national security or protecting American jobs. It is, at its core, a complete rejection of the American dream and the values that have served as the bedrock of our great nation. It is designed to intimidate with cruelty and chaos. Birthright citizenship has allowed America to become the vibrant and dynamic home to families from all corners of this planet. It has helped make our country the strong, prosperous, and great nation that it is today. But the president wants to twist history and have us pretend that the words written in the 14th Amendment and a century and a half of legal precedent do not mean anything. He is dead wrong. The Citizenship Clause in the 14th Amendment could not be clearer. It automatically grants citizenship to anyone born in this country, regardless of the citizenship of their parents. And the Supreme Court has affirmed this interpretation. 3 decades after its adoption in 1868, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the 14th Amendment's promise of birthright citizenship in a case called United States versus Wong Kim Ark. Wong Kim Ark was born in San Francisco in 1873 to Chinese parents living in the United States. His parents were not U.S. citizens and returned to China in 1890. After a trip to China to visit his parents in 1895, Wong Kim Ark was denied re-entry into the United States and told he was not a U.S. citizen. In 1898, the Supreme Court ruled that he was, in fact, a U.S. citizen under the, quote, clear words and manifest intent of the 14th Amendment. Citizenship by birth is established by the mere fact of birth under the circumstances defined in the Constitution, the majority wrote. Quote, every person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof becomes at once a citizen of the United States and needs no naturalization. The court also clarified who is, quote, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Quote, every citizen or subject of another country while domiciled here is within the allegiance and the protection and consequently subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. The only exceptions, the court ruled, were foreign nationals in the U.S. in a diplomatic capacity and those born to non-citizens in U.S. territories under hostile control. The federal government has accepted and endorsed this understanding of the citizenship clause for more than a century. And in 1995, when Congress considered proposed legislation that would have denied citizenship to certain children born in the U.S. based on their parents' immigration or citizenship status, the U.S. Department of Justice's Office of Legal Counsel called the proposal, quote, unquestionably unconstitutional. No president can unilaterally change the Constitution on a whim. Only constitutional amendments can change the Constitution. That is why just a few moments ago, I, along with the Attorneys General of Illinois, Oregon, and Washington, sued President Trump in the Western District of Washington. Another group of attorneys general are filing a separate case in the District of Massachusetts. While the president has broad authority on matters of immigration, our lawsuit asserts that the president acted far outside the bounds of his legal authority in issuing this order, and allowing federal agencies to implement and enforce it will harm thousands of Arizonans and the state at large. Unlawfully stripping U.S. citizens of their right to citizenship will impact their future ability to vote, travel abroad, secure housing, access health care, seek employment, run for public office, serve on juries, and more generally, participate fully in American society. This lawless order is not only nakedly unconstitutional, it is an attack on families and children in this state and across this country. And it will cause irreparable damage and harm to Arizonans. Arizona administers numerous programs to support the health and welfare of its residents. Many of those programs are designed and do support the health and welfare of our residents. Many of those programs are supported by federal funding, which will be reduced due to the order, the executive order. The total loss for Arizona would be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. This illegal executive order will also harm the most vulnerable Arizona children by making it harder for the Department of Child Safety to place children in its custody with extended family members. The department prioritizes kinship placements because placing abandoned, neglected, or abused children with their relatives reduces trauma and improves outcomes for the children. And it would also make it harder to administer Arizona's laws requiring that voters show documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote. As you know, we are one of, if not the only state that has that requirement. Voters commonly use birth certificates to prove citizenship. If a U.S. birth certificate were to stop being sufficient for proof of citizenship, voter registration in Arizona would become substantially more difficult and time-consuming. And those are just a few ways that this executive order would immediately harm Arizona and our residents. The infamous Dred Scott decision by the Supreme Court stated that enslaved people and their descendants were not and could never be considered citizens of this nation. Had it been allowed to stand, it would have created a permanent subclass of people born in this country but denied their full rights. But the 14th Amendment rightfully nullified that horrific decision. This order would risk repeating one of the worst mistakes in our nation's history. The 14th Amendment protects the rights of every American citizen, no matter their ancestry. Only in a nation where every child is born with the same inalienable, God-given rights can any of us truly be free. That is why we cannot and will not allow the Constitution to be undermined in this way, and this illegal order will not stand. Howard.
Two questions. Let's start with the technical. Are you seeking a TRO? The President's order said it would take effect 30 days after the order. Are you seeking a TRO, and on what basis?
Yes, we are seeking a TRO. And then obviously after that a preliminary injunction, and on the basis that this would do immediate and irreparable harm to our state, to the residents of our state, to our economy, to the state, to our state agencies. Yeah, you're right. It does say 30 days from now, but the chaos from this is going to be immediate. Think about it. We have pregnant women in this state who are about to give birth, who now don't know whether their children are going to be U.S. citizens.
Okay. Other question.
Yeah.
When the legislature tried to do this in 2011, you may remember, I went back and read the 1898 case. One of the key differences is in that case, Juan King Ark's parents were here legally. The court said that. They were here, they were working. They did go back to China, but they weren't.
Yeah, they had gone back to China, yeah.
Does the fact that this deals with people who entered the country illegally?
No, it doesn't. No. That's where you're wrong. I mean, first of all, that's where you're wrong on that. This is a much, and I can have my Solicitor General Josh Bender come forward. It is a much broader executive order than that. It covers people who came in on a visa, who may have overstayed that visa. It covers a broad swath of people. And so, you know, the case law is clear over time, not just the case you just cited and I just cited, but the case law is consistent over time. The Constitution is clear. The plain language of the Constitution is clear. And this order is plainly unconstitutional and will cause chaos. Josh, do you want to say anything about Howie's question?
Well, I think you covered it well, but the text of the 14th Amendment doesn't suggest any difference between whether a person has been lawfully admitted or not, and that's what the Supreme Court said in a subsequent Supreme Court case called Plyler. And the circuit courts, including the Ninth Circuit, in which our case is located, have recognized the basic principles of birthright citizenship. So no, it doesn't make a difference. And as the Attorney General said, the order is broader and would affect the kids of parents who are here temporarily unlawfully.
Plyler versus Doe, is that case? Yeah. Stacy.
Can you speak to the legal approach here? Like, why join these 3 other states versus the Massachusetts case that involves 18 states?
Yeah, so we decided to file with Washington, Oregon, and Illinois also decided to join this case. Look, we're a Western state. We know the Ninth Circuit. We know the Western District of Washington. We've had cases in this, obviously, in this circuit and in that before that court. So we just thought that this was the best way to do it. I will tell you that all of the states are unified in this. That if you take a look at our lawsuit and the lawsuit that was filed in Massachusetts, there's a lot of similarities. I was on a call last night with every single Democratic AG in the country talking about our respective lawsuits. Obviously, you can tell that we've been planning for this. You don't pull together a lawsuit like this in just a few hours. So we are unified across the country. There are attorneys general across the country having press conferences right now in their states on this matter.
Can I ask a follow-up
Yeah.
related?
Yeah.
Is there any concern in your mind that this executive order is an intentional test of the 14th Amendment and the case law to date, given a Trump Supreme Court that reverses precedent sometimes?
It's a great question. I guess we're it's hard to know what is in the mind of someone who would so willingly seek to violate and shred our Constitution. But in our minds, this is not even a close call. So, we obviously hope that if this makes it to the United States Supreme Court, that the court will read the Constitution. We have a lot of strict constructionists on the court, and that means they read the plain language of the Constitution, and they follow, hopefully, the plain language of the Constitution. Dennis?
You said that you've been planning this for a while. Can you talk a little bit about that planning? You've been working with other attorneys general. Can you talk about how long the planning has been going on? What's been involved with that?
Yeah, I mean, at least the planning for these kinds of scenarios and these kinds of actions has gone back to at least last summer. We have been meeting regularly for at least 6 months, perhaps longer. I'd have to check my calendar, but we were in Philadelphia together, the city of our nation's birth, the city of the creation of our Constitution in November, where we knew based on the election results that we were looking at having to battle for our Constitution and battle for the rights of Americans. And so that's where we're at. And so it's been, obviously, I would say it's probably gone back beyond that. I mean, Project 2025 was released more than a year ago. So we knew that this is what they had planned. We knew they wanted to shred our Constitution, and we had a fight on our hands. And you guys know me. I'm a fighter, and that's what I'm going to do on behalf of the people of Arizona. Every single time the new president tries to undermine our Constitution or abrogate the rights of Arizonans.
One last follow-up. Voters were pretty clear
Yeah.
this past year when it comes to the border. There was a clear mandate with the Secure Border Act.
Yeah.
Do you feel in any way that doing what you're doing today gets in the way of that voters' mandate?
Absolutely not. I don't think voters voted to undo birthright citizenship. I mean, guys, this is bizarre. This is a bizarre attempt to undermine 150 years of jurisprudence and the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. And I don't think that voters in Arizona, whoever they voted for, ever thought that they would be voting to undermine birthright citizenship or to destroy birthright citizenship. So I just don't think so.
Just quickly, but the president said.
Yeah, whether he said a lot of things, that were pretty crazy. This might have been at the top of crazy for him, but I don't really think voters thought that he was going to do this. Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned the executive order is slightly broad, and obviously people need to know as much information as they possibly can. Some people hearing about this might think, oh, I became a citizen because of the 14th Amendment. Would those people under this executive order, could they possibly be impacted?
So, as far as we know, and our reading of the executive order is that it is prospective, right? So that people who are already here, who were born here, even to parents who were not here lawfully, are covered, are citizens. But You know, it certainly is prospective. As I said, every year we have thousands of children who are born in Arizona who receive birthright citizenship because they are born on American soil. And we have, I don't know how many pregnant women we have in Arizona right now who may be asking those questions. We also know that the cost to the state of Arizona is going to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars as we lose federal funding to support children who may need, for instance, access or Medicaid coverage or other assistance. That will go away, and then that will fall on the state of Arizona to try to provide. So the damage is going to be enormous, and again, it's just flatly unconstitutional. So yeah.
Can we expect other lawsuits from you challenging other elements of Trump's immigration policies here?
I think it depends. I'll come right back to you. But we are actively looking at what he's already put out. You know, it's still early days. So we're taking a look at it. There are other things that we're looking at. I will tell you, I'm very interested in, and frankly, incredibly disappointed in what looks like an effort to impound the funds that would be coming to Arizona under the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, that could have enormous implications for the state of Arizona and all the investment that was coming. And I've asked my team, Josh, and our Solicitor General's office to look at whether that's possibly unconstitutional or unlawful. Yes.
Yeah, this is kind of related with the immigration. So the Senate just introduced a bill, the ICE Act, to force the Arizona authorities to comply with the immigration policies. What are your thoughts about that?
The Arizona Senate, yep. The recent introduction. Yeah, look, this was put out by Warren Peterson, I take it. What I would say to Warren Peterson is do your job first. You've got a lot of work to do that you haven't been doing. He has cut the budget. Last year, the Senate and House Republicans and the governor cut the DPS budget. They also cut my office's budget. We prosecute almost all of the major drug felony cases against the Mexican drug cartels, and yet they cut my budget. They cut DPS's budget, and now he's putting out something else that would be an unfunded mandate. I would say to Warren Peterson and the Republicans in the legislature, where have you been when it comes to funding our sheriffs and our police chiefs who are saddled with the unfunded mandate of Prop 314? Where have you been? So, I would say do your job first and then, start passing more legislation. Yes, back here.
So you're talking about budget cuts to your office. The legislature in California is making a $50 million pot of money to take on Trump. Your legislature probably is not going to do that. Are you confident you have the money to do all of these upcoming lawsuits as well as what your office can do?
I have the best Solicitor General in the state of Arizona, in the country, not just the state of Arizona, but in the entire country. I have the best SGO in the country. We have managed to build, I think, one of the most talented legal teams here. They are small but mighty, and yes, we have what it takes. It would be nice to be one of those states where the legislature would actually support the Attorney General's office. It would be nice to have a legislature that was pro-law enforcement, and that means funding the Attorney General's office, which is where most of the efforts are to combat the drug cartels, but that's not where we're at right now. So, yes.
Yes, I have a question. How does, given if this executive order goes into effect, for an Arizonan who's a U.S. citizen who doesn't have a passport, how do they get that if a birth certificate isn't proof of citizenship? Does that still affect people who say don't have passports and still need to apply?
You know, I mean, we were talking about this upstairs, and you know, I'll let Josh come up and try to answer it as well. It's a great question. I think it's one of the things that are, you know, not explained by this executive order, and it's part of that issue is the part of the chaos of this executive order. You know, how do you prove your citizenship anymore if you can't do it with a birth certificate? Another question is, what are hospitals supposed to do? You know, are now hospitals supposed to add a component on the birth certificate or something to the birth certificate that says, I've checked the citizenship of these two people, or the mom and the dad, and I have affirmed that they are citizens, and therefore there can be a birth certificate. You know, I was talking with my criminal division chief this morning about this. The Trump administration apparently is saying that all of these individuals are not under the jurisdiction of the United States. Does that mean they don't want me to prosecute people who are engaging in fentanyl trafficking in Arizona because they're not under the jurisdiction of my office? I mean, that's a conclusion you could reach from this executive order, is that I couldn't prosecute somebody who was not here lawfully or that was not here born a citizen. Does that mean that now, does this executive order now also mean that hospitals are going and doctors are going to ask people whether they are citizens of the United States before they will treat people? Because they'd be worried that they're not going to get paid because Access won't pay for it anymore? There are a lot of questions that are raised by this executive order, and that's among the many reasons that we are going to fight it and we are going to defeat it in court. You have a follow-up question?
I have one more question,
Yeah.
which is just the executive order regarding lethal injection drugs. Will that potentially help Arizona as we look to restart executions in the state?
I don't think it's necessary. You know, we have procured the drugs necessary to carry out executions in Arizona. We are prepared to do that. We anticipate that we will be executing Aaron Gunches on March 18th if the Supreme Court approves the execution warrant. So I don't think it's necessary. Obviously, I don't know who it was aimed at or what states it was aimed at, but we are prepared and ready to go. Dennis, let's come back here, right? Okay, is it on this topic or okay?
No, I didn't expect to go off topic.
Well, you can go off topic. I'm here.
Let's go off topic. So you've got a fake electric case has been still working its way through the courts. You know, I'd like to, if you could give us an update on that, but more importantly, I'd like to get your thoughts on Trump pardoning the J6 rioters yesterday. You're saying you're pro law enforcement and whatnot. I mean, some of the people in Arizona were...
I'm not saying it. I am, Dennis.
Well,
but go ahead.
But, you know, this does affect people in Arizona when he pardoned them, most notably the QAnon shaman.
Yeah.
But just your thoughts in general on the pardon.
The decision by Donald Trump to pardon more than 1,600 people who were charged or convicted for violently assaulting the U.S. Capitol, for violently assaulting police officers, is the most anti-law enforcement action that any president of the United States has ever taken. As the chief law enforcement officer for the state of Arizona, as the granddaughter of a Capitol police officer, I find it deeply appalling, disgusting, and offensive to every law enforcement officer in this country and in the state of Arizona. It is incomprehensible to me that any president would do this when so many Capitol police officers and law enforcement officers were hurt in the line of duty during the January 6th insurrection. So that's my personal feeling about it. Probably not anything that I can do on that subject except to speak out against it and except to say that we should never, ever forget what happened on that day. Yeah.
So there was another executive order signed yesterday designating cartels as terrorist organizations. How does that impact, if at all, what you do when it comes to those prosecutions?
The prosecutions that we're already doing. You know, I wouldn't say that it really affects what we do. What I would say is to the president is, you know, if you really want to help fight the drug cartels, stop with the meaningless words. Stop with the meaningless executive orders. Send me additional DEA agents. Do you know that the state of New York has 3 times the number of DEA agents that the state of Arizona has? Do you know that the state of Florida has at least 3 times the number of DEA agents as the state of Arizona? I mean, why not massively increase the number of Border Patrol agents that we have in the state of Arizona? But, you know, all you guys know I was born and raised in Prescott, about 200 yards from the world's oldest rodeo. And sometimes I'd go hang out with the cowboys back in the rodeo when I was a kid. And then we have a saying up there, they had a saying, which is, that's all hat and no cattle. Right now, Donald Trump is all hat and no cattle when it comes to protecting our border. So we'll see. Maybe he'll do something real. But until then, all hat and no cattle. Yes?
Another big tenet of Trump's immigration policy is mass deportations, which they're a little unclear, but you mentioned your office has been working to respond to some of these policies. Is that one of them? Can you shed any light on your plans, or is that a role for your office?
On mass well, I mean, what I've said is, you know, we are, you know, number one, protecting dreamers is my top priority. And protecting U.S. citizens, people who are here lawfully, is my also my number one priority. And the problem with mass deportations, if that's the road they intend to go down, is that it inevitably will ensnare people who are here legally. I also will not have any part of and will fight the attempt to set up what I believe are essentially concentration camps and family separation camps in the state of Arizona. I've said it to you guys before. It was one of the reasons I ran for Attorney General, to oppose that kind of thing. And I don't intend to be a part of that, and I don't believe Arizonans want it. You know, when I travel the border, when I talk to business leaders on the border, do you know what they don't want? They want what they do want is a secure border. What they don't want is chaos. They don't want people claiming that there's some kind of an invasion happening on the border. They don't want, you know, silly words talking about, you know, declaring war on Mexico. And you want to know why they don't want that? They don't want that because it's bad for business. They don't want that because they're trying to attract businesses to the border. And they certainly don't want concentration camps along the border. What our sheriffs do want is they want help. What I want is more help with prosecutions of the drug cartels. What I want for our sheriffs and our local law enforcement is more personnel, more resources. The real things that, for instance, were in the bipartisan border bill, right? That Donald Trump tanked. So if we can bring some of those things to Arizona, I think that would be fantastic.
Got time for a couple more.
Yeah. Stacy? Yeah.
Is there anything, the president was very busy yesterday. Is there anything that he did that you liked, that you think could help the work that your office is doing?
Come on, think about it.
I am. Is there anything that he did that I think it remains, I have an open mind to the possibility that some of what he said means that he'll send us more DEA agents and more Border Patrol agents. When you actually dig into the executive orders, that is not very clear. It's not clear at all that it means he's bringing resources. He talked about the military. He talked about a whole bunch of other things, but he didn't talk about that. And again, I'm very concerned about some of these executive orders that clearly look like they're going to deprive the state of Arizona of resources, especially the Inflation Reduction Act. That would be totally unhelpful to our state.
Which is an interesting question in terms of standing. I take it your standing is the loss of finances to the state.
Yeah.
Because can your office represent children not yet born? I mean, do you even have standing on that?
I think our predicate for standing is based on the loss of resources, the loss of the fact that we will have to begin to pick up the tab for services. As I mentioned, the impact to DCS that will occur almost immediately as soon as this happens. And then it's not probably in the lawsuit right now, but I'm very, very concerned about how this is going to impact our healthcare system and our hospitals, who are going to be thrown into, I think, a state of chaos if this were actually to go through.